Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk a little bit more about electoral politics, additional parties, and how to get there. Because after that last video, there were a whole bunch of people saying, well, this just sounds hopeless. No, it's not hopeless. That was a long video. I felt like there might be people that didn't get to the end. But how to accomplish that is in the video. It's not hopeless. It's just not something that happens without work. You have to set the goal, okay? If your goal is have a third-party candidate president, that's not a goal, that's a wish. You have to have a plan to get there. The plan starts at the bottom. And when you look at the counterexamples that were brought up, they're like, well, it didn't do any good with the primary with Bernie. Well, yeah, that's starting at the top. You have to start at the bottom. If you put progressives at the bottom and they move up through the Democratic Party, the Democratic establishment, quote, becomes more progressive because that's who's making it up. They would be more inclined to support a more progressive presidential candidate. It isn't really something that can really be argued. That's how it works. A lot of people brought up Ross Perot. He did okay. Yeah, he had a really strong showing for a third-party candidate. And, relatively close to 20% of the vote. How many electoral votes did he get? When you look at it through the lens that matters, didn't even come close. Starting at the top. You have to start at the bottom. You have to start at the bottom. And there's a lot of people who, like the House and the Senate, I don't understand how people in a time of senators like Manchin can doubt the power of just a couple of very closely aligned senators. If you had a bunch of very progressive senators, and by a bunch I mean a handful, less than a handful, 3, in a closely divided Senate, you would be able to move more legislation forward of a progressive bent than you would ever get to move with a third-party progressive president. The president is the head of state, but in the United States, the power is in the halls of Congress. It is incredibly important. And how do people get to the Senate? Normally through the House of Representatives. So you have to go there first. And most times, this is kind of being upended right now because there are a lot of people who are just jumping straight to the House. But normally, those people have a political career at the state or local level first. So that's the route. It's not saying that it's hopeless. It's saying that you have to have a plan. And just saying, well, this is what I want, that's just a wish. And then there were a lot of people who brought up reforms in the U.S. electoral system that are desperately needed. 100% correct on all of them. There are things that would definitely help make the United States more responsive to the citizens of the country. But that means the people in power lose power, right? So how are you going to get them to vote for it? You have to put people in who already believe that's what they need to do. That those policies need to be implemented. How do they get there? From the bottom, right? It's just the route. It's how U.S. politics works. And trying to ignore that is not a recipe for victory. It doesn't matter how morally correct you are, how correct in your position you are. It doesn't matter how much you believe. It doesn't matter how energized you are. When you are, in fact, facing two very, very strong political machines, they have the power. You have to build your own power structure. And one thing that I didn't really consider in when I was talking about it was people saying, well, if you got a president from a third party elected, well, it would show that their positions have a mandate, and therefore, the people in Congress would move to support them. I want you to look at the polling for Medicare for all, universal health care. Look at the polling for gun control. Look at the polling for reproductive rights. Those are landslide wins. But that's not the way the legislation's headed. Because it's not really about the power structure in that way. They don't look at the polling and say, this is what I'm going to do. They look at the polling that matters in their district at that time and what they can distract from and what they're getting donations to support. That it isn't there. You have to get the seats of power. They're in Congress. It's not the White House. I understand that it is more difficult to go this route, and it may seem more daunting, but it's what has to happen. There's no other way. I'm not trying to disrupt your dream, but a dream without a plan, it's never going to happen. If you look at the successful movements, those that were truly capable of changing party direction and party platform, they started at the bottom. It's the only way to do it. You're right. There's a monetary thing. The people at the top have all the money, but at the bottom you don't need as much. So it's much easier to move ahead that way. It's the reality of American politics. Building a power structure outside of a political party that is geographic to a city or a county, and then using that as an electoral tool rather than as a part of a party. That's the way forward. That's the way forward. There are entire playlists on how to build those networks. So I'm not trying to dissuade you. I'm trying to say, if you want to go that route, if you want to use electoral politics to get that deep systemic change, you have to do way more than cast a vote for a third-party presidential candidate. It requires a lot more work. And there are organizations in there. There's some mentioned in the comments under that video. There are some organizations that are putting in the work to do that. It's not impossible. It just takes time. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.